The battlefield of Threx 9 burned beneath a violet sky. Metal debris glowed red from heat, and the air was thick with dust and smoke. The war between the United Earth Coalition and the invading Kraith had turned the once green moon into a wasteland. But amid the chaos, one human refused to carry a weapon. Dr. Leon moved carefully through the ruins, his medical pack clattering softly against his back. His uniform was torn, his face streaked with dirt, but his eyes stayed calm. Around him, soldiers shouted orders and blaster fire echoed in the distance. The war didn't interest him anymore. Saving lives did. He ducked behind a fallen transport, scanning with his wrist device. The screen flashed with life signs nearby, weak fading. Not human. Alien signature, he muttered. But alive. He moved toward the signal, stepping over metal shards and broken helmets. When he reached the spot, he froze. There, lying among the wreckage, was a tall alien warrior in crimson armor, her chest plate shattered, and dark blue blood staining the ground. It was a Veshan, one of humanity's allies, proud and fearsome. Her species was known for their strength and strict traditions. Even wounded, she looked powerful, her silver hair tangled, her skin pale blue under the moonlight. Leon dropped to his knees beside her. "Hey, can you hear me?" he asked. Her golden eyes flickered open, filled with pain and defiance. "Stay back, human," she hissed weakly. "Do not touch me." Leon frowned. "You're bleeding heavily. Your artery's damaged. If I don't stop it now, you'll die within minutes." The alien tried to lift her hand, but it trembled. "Then I die with honor," she said through clenched teeth. "No one may touch a Veshan's skin except her mate." Leon stared for a heartbeat, understanding nothing of her customs. "Yeah, well, I'm not here for honor. I'm here for survival, yours." He reached for his medkit. "Hold still," she turned her head sharply. "Human! I forbid." Her words ended in a gasp as Leon pressed the medical sealant to her wound. The device hissed softly, spreading a thin layer of nanogel over the torn flesh. He ignored her glare, working fast. Her pulse was faint, her breathing shallow. "If he stopped now, she'd be gone," I said. "Don't touch," she whispered, trying to push him away, but her strength failed. Her hand slipped and fell limp to the ground. "I'll apologize later," Leon said, voice steady. "Right now you just need to live." He cleaned the wound, applied the regenerator, and checked her vitals. The readings stabilized slowly, and the glow of the medical field dimmed as the gel solidified. Only then did he take a deep breath. The Veshan woman blinked, struggling to focus. "Why would you help me?" she asked weakly. "You gain nothing." Leon looked at her, his face soft but firm. "Because you're alive. That's reason enough." Her eyes widened slightly. For a long moment she just stared at him. This small human with gentle hands and tired eyes. Then darkness took her again and she lost consciousness. The next few hours were a blur. Leon called for evac drones, lifted her carefully onto a stretcher, and carried her through the ruins toward the field station. Every step was heavy. The ground shook from distant explosions. Still, he didn't stop. Inside the base, chaos reigned. Medics rushed from bed to bed. Human and alien soldiers lay side by side, bandaged and groaning. The lights flickered as power drained from the generators. "Doctor, who is she?" a nurse asked when she saw Leon carrying the Veshan. "Commander Rinka of the Veshan Guard," he said. "She was hit outside Sector 9. Severe plasma injury, but she'll make it." The nurse hesitated. "Sir, are you sure it's safe to treat her here?" "The Veshan have—" I'll deal with the rules later," Leon replied. "She's a patient first." They worked quickly, sealing the last of her wounds. Her breathing steadied, her body responding to the nanogel repair. When it was done, Leon leaned back, exhausted. He hadn't realized how much his hands were shaking. Hours later, when the battlefront moved further away, the med bay grew quiet. The hum of machines replaced the earlier screams and footsteps. Leon sat nearby, checking the data pad at her bedside. Her vitals were good. She would live. He allowed himself a small smile. "You're tougher than you look," he said softly. Then, to his surprise, her eyes opened. The golden glow returned, sharp and focused. For a moment she didn't move, just stared at the ceiling. Then her gaze turned to him and something cold flashed across her face. "You," she said in a low voice. "You touched me," Leon blinked. "You were dying. You had no right." She sat up, ignoring the pain, gripping the edge of the bed. "Do you know what you've done?" He hesitated. "I saved your life. That's what I did. You have broken our sacred law, she said, her tone rising. No one may touch a Veshan's skin except her chosen mate. To do so is a deep dishonor. Her words hit him like a shockwave. He had heard of the Veshan customs, how they guarded personal contact as sacred, but he hadn't known it was this serious. I didn't mean disrespect, Leon said carefully. If I hadn't acted, you'd be dead. Then I should have died with honor, she replied coldly. Leanne took a breath, steady but firm. And I should have watched you die when I could save you? Sorry, Commander, that's not how humans work. Her eyes softened slightly, though pride kept her expression rigid. She looked down at her arms, now clean and whole. The faint silver lines of healing were proof of his work. No Veshan medic could have done that so quickly. His tools were foreign but effective. Finally, she spoke again, quieter this time. Why risk angering my kind? You could have walked away. Because you were alive, he said simply, and because I could help. Rinka stared at him, unsure how to respond. Humans were strange, reckless, illogical, yet sincere. She had fought beside them but never understood them. Until now, before she could reply, the medbay doors opened. A group of Veshan soldiers entered, their armor gleaming despite the damage. They saw her awake and saw him beside her. Their expressions turned dark. One of them, a tall male with markings across his jaw, pointed at Leon. Human, he growled. What have you done to our commander? Rinka raised a hand weakly. He saved me, she said. The soldier's eyes narrowed. By touching you? That is forbidden. Leon stood his ground. She was dying. I did what any doctor would do. The tension in the room grew thick. The soldiers exchanged looks of disgust and confusion. Among the Veshan, this act was more than taboo. It was nearly sacrilege. Enough, Rinka said suddenly, her voice firm though her body still trembled. Leave us. The soldiers hesitated. Commander, leave, she repeated. Her golden eyes blazed. They bowed reluctantly and left the medbay, muttering in their language. The door closed behind them and silence filled the room once more. Rinka looked at Leon, her face unreadable. You will not be safe among my people now, she said. They see this as a great insult. Leon shrugged lightly. I've had worse insults. Besides, I didn't come here to be safe. Something almost like a smile touched her lips, but it faded quickly. You are either brave or foolish, Doctor. Maybe both, he said with a faint grin. I'll let history decide. That night Rinka couldn't sleep. The images of battle haunted her. The screams, the heat, the explosion that had thrown her into the dust. And then the human's face above her, calm and focused, his hands glowing with healing light. Among her people, being touched by another was like giving a piece of one's soul away. Yet she felt no loss, no shame, only confusion. She remembered the warmth of his hand, the certainty in his eyes. He hadn't hesitated, even knowing nothing about her. In her heart, something unsettled moved, an unfamiliar feeling she didn't want to name. Across the room, Leon sat by the medbay window looking at the stars. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, maybe anger, maybe danger, but he didn't regret saving her. Life was life, no matter the species or the rules that came with it. The soft hum of the machines filled the silence. Between them, unspoken tension lingered, not of hostility, but of something deeper. Something that neither fully understood yet. Outside, the first light of Threx 9's dawn began to rise, and so began the fragile thread between a human doctor and an alien warrior. A thread that would soon challenge both their worlds. The morning after the battle, the human field station on Threx 9 stood in uneasy silence. The sky outside was pale and smoky, and the scent of burnt metal lingered in the air. Inside the medbay, the hum of medical machines mixed with quiet whispers from patients and nurses. Dr. Leon moved from bed to bed, checking vitals and updating logs. His eyes were tired, but his hand stayed steady. It had been 2 full days since the rescue, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something beyond medicine and war. At the far end of the room, Commander Rinka sat upright on her bed. Her posture was strong again, but her face looked distant, as if she was fighting a silent war inside. She had not spoken much since she woke. Every time Leon passed her, she turned her gaze away, pretending to look at the ceiling or the window. Still, he always checked her monitors, made sure her vitals were normal, and spoke softly even if she didn't answer. Your oxygen levels are stable, he said one morning. The nanogel is still repairing deeper tissue. You'll be able to stand soon. I do not need your words, she replied coldly. Only distance. Leon gave a small smile. You said that yesterday too. Then listen this time, she said sharply, turning her golden eyes toward him. Your presence brings dishonor. Do you not understand? He met her gaze calmly. I understand rules, he said. But I also understand pain. And healing, her jaw tightened. You speak of healing, but you do not see what you have broken. There was silence for a long moment. Leon didn't argue. He only adjusted her monitor and quietly walked away. Later that day, the door to the medbay opened with a loud hiss. 3 Vishan officers stepped inside, their heavy boots echoing on the floor. Their leader was General Torin, a tall, scarred warrior whose armor gleamed like silver stone. His expression was hard as ice. Commander Rinka, he said, voice deep and cold. You live. That is good. But your survival has caused a storm among our kind. Rinka stood, her movement still a little weak but proud. General, I fought as I was trained. I fell in battle. The human doctor saved me. That is all. Torin's eyes narrowed. Saved you by touching you. His tone was like a blade. Rinka hesitated, her eyes flickering toward Leon, who stood quietly at his desk. Yes, she admitted at last. A low growl came from the 2 soldiers behind the general. The Veshan were emotional when it came to their traditions. To be touched without bond or ritual was shame. It was not hatred, it was sacred law. Torin turned toward Leon. Human, he said slowly. You may not know our customs, but ignorance does not erase offense. You have crossed into what our people call the bond law. You have touched what should never be touched. Leon straightened. If I hadn't, she would be dead. The general's eyes flashed. Then her spirit would have joined our ancestors in honor. That's not how humans think, Leon said simply. Life is always worth saving. The silence grew heavier. Even the machines seemed to hum more softly. Rinka stepped forward, her voice calm but steady. General, I gave no permission, but I do not accuse him. His hands brought me back when all else failed. If there is blame, let it fall on me. The general frowned deeply. You defend him? I defend reason, she said. He did what any healer would do. He did not seek to dishonor me. Torin stared at her for a long time, then finally said, You have changed, Commander. Perhaps too much among the humans. He turned toward the exit. The council will decide what to do with this. Breach of custom. When they left, the air felt cold. Leon looked at Rinka. I didn't mean to make things worse. Rinka shook her head slowly. It is not your fault, Doctor. It is our world that refuses to bend. Days passed. The warfront moved away, leaving behind broken camps and half-repaired equipment. The medbay grew quieter. Many soldiers were transferred, but Rinka stayed for further recovery. She spent her hours in silence, training her mind to stay still. Yet her thoughts often wandered back to the human who had saved her. She had always believed her people's traditions were unbreakable. But now, every time she looked at the healed line on her skin, she wondered, was it dishonor or was it mercy? One evening, as rain hissed against the metal roof, Leon came by with his usual calm smile. How's the arm today? Functional, she said, testing it by lifting a small supply crate. Pain? None. Good, he said, writing notes on his pad. You'll be ready for field clearance soon. She looked at him curiously. You seem pleased to see me go. He shook his head lightly. No, just pleased to see you healed. Her voice softened. Humans are strange. You risk your life for others with no promise of reward. That's what makes us human, I guess, he said, smiling faintly. Rinka studied him for a moment. Among my kind, such actions are not common. We fight for pride, for command, for the strength of the tribe. You fight for... Nothing but life, Leon shrugged. Life's a big enough reason. She looked down. You speak as if all lives are equal. They are, he said simply. Yours, mine, everyone's. The truth in his tone unsettled her more than any weapon could. For the first time, she realized how differently humans saw the universe. To them, compassion was not weakness, it was strength. That night, the Veshan Council's message arrived through secure transmission. Rinka read it in silence, her face hidden in shadow. When she finished, her shoulders dropped slightly. Leon noticed. Bad news? She handed him the data chip. They demand that I return to Vesha Prime for judgment. They call my survival a dishonor to the code. Leon's heart sank. Judgment? For being saved? Yes, she said softly. They believe I allowed a bond to be formed without the sacred rite. It is a crime among my kind. But that's absurd, Leon said, stepping closer. You didn't choose this. I acted on my own. She looked up at him. Intent does not matter in their eyes. The act itself binds us. He stared at her, shocked. Binds us? She nodded slowly. The Veshan believe that when someone touches another's bare skin to heal or protect, a spiritual mark is made, a bond that cannot be undone except by ritual separation. Leon exhaled, trying to understand. So you mean? They think we're mated, she finished quietly. He blinked, speechless. That's not what happened. I know, she said, but they will not see it that way. There was silence again, only the hum of the power lines above them. Finally, Leon spoke, his voice calm but firm. If your people punish you for what I did, then I'll speak for you. I'll tell them everything, she turned sharply. You would stand before our council? Humans are not welcome there. Then they'll just have to make an exception, he said with a faint grin. For the first time since the battle, Rinka almost smiled. It was small but real. You are reckless, Doctor. Maybe, he said, but I don't like injustice, especially when it's my fault. The next morning, the camp buzzed with movement. Ships prepared for departure. Rinka dressed in her restored armor, her silver hair tied back neatly. Leon stood by her side, holding her final med report. You're fully cleared, he said. No signs of infection or nerve damage. Your science is efficient, she said. You have my thanks, he nodded. You don't owe me anything. Her golden eyes softened. That is not how I was raised. A life saved is a life shared. Before he could respond, a loud alarm blared through the camp. A Kraith raiding group had been spotted on the horizon. One last attack before retreat. Soldiers rushed to defense positions. The ground shook with distant explosions. Leon looked at her. You shouldn't be fighting yet. Rinka's eyes gleamed. And leave you unguarded? Impossible. She grabbed her plasma spear and ran toward the defense line. Leon followed, carrying his medkit. The sky darkened as enemy ships descended. They fought side by side, her with her spear blazing, him dragging the wounded to cover. At one point, a Kraith drone fired near Leon, knocking him down. Before it could strike again, Rinka leapt forward, her spear cutting through the air, destroying it in one blow. When the smoke cleared, she knelt beside him. You protect lives, Doctor, she said. But who protects you? Leon smiled weakly. Guess that's your job today. For a second, her hand rested on his shoulder. It was not forbidden this time. It was trust. When the raid finally ended, the human camp stood victorious once again. But in that moment of peace, something deeper had changed between them. Rinka no longer looked at him with anger or shame. She saw him as something else, an equal, a friend. Perhaps even something more she couldn't name yet, and though neither spoke it aloud. Both knew their bond, accidental or not, was now real in ways neither law nor war could break. The war on Threx 9 slowed after the last great battle. The Kraith army retreated into the outer systems, leaving behind silence and destruction. The human and Veshan alliance had survived, but the wounds between them were not only on their bodies. They ran deeper through pride and tradition. In the medical camp, life tried to return to normal. Doctors treated the remaining wounded. Engineers repaired equipment, and soldiers prepared to move to the next outpost. Yet within the camp, a quiet tension spread, one that began with a single act of compassion. Dr. Leon moved through the medbay with his usual calm. His uniform was clean now, though his face still carried tired shadows from endless work. Everywhere he went, people nodded with respect, except when the Veshan were nearby. Their golden eyes followed him with suspicion and silent anger. He pretended not to notice, but he felt it every time. He had become a symbol of something unspoken, an outsider who had broken sacred lines. Commander Rinka stood outside the medbay that morning, watching the sunrise over the broken horizon. The pale light reflected off her silver armor. Her body was healed, but her mind was restless. When she heard Leon's footsteps behind her, she didn't turn. You still work as if the war never ended, she said. Leon smiled faintly. It never really ends for doctors. There's always someone to fix. You fix what is broken, she said quietly. But sometimes fixing one thing breaks another. He stepped beside her. You mean your people? She nodded. They whisper that I am tainted. They think you belong to me now. Her voice was flat, almost bitter. They call me the human-bound. Leon frowned. That's not fair. You didn't choose this. Fairness does not exist in tradition, she said. Only law and pride. He looked at her for a long moment. If your council believes you've done something wrong, I'll speak for you. I'll tell them everything. Her golden eyes softened, but she shook her head. You would only make it worse. The Veshan see humans as emotional creatures. Too soft, too impulsive. They would not listen to you, Leon sighed. Then maybe it's time someone showed them what compassion really means. Later that day, a meeting was held in the command hall. Representatives from both species gathered to discuss the future of the Alliance. The room was wide and cold, filled with maps and glowing screens. Rinka stood with her Veshan delegation, tall and composed. Leon was there as part of the human medical staff. When General Torn entered, silence fell. His presence carried authority like a blade. We are gathered, Torn said, to discuss the breach of custom that threatens the unity between our people. His gaze turned directly toward Leon. The human doctor has broken the bond law by touching one of our kind. Murmurs filled the room. The human officers exchanged uneasy looks. Leon took a breath and stepped forward. With respect, General, I acted to save her life. There was no time to ask for permission. I didn't know about your customs, and even if I had, I wouldn't have let her die. Torrens' eyes hardened. And by that act, you have claimed a bond with her. Among our people, such contact is no small thing. It ties souls. I didn't ask for that, Leon said. Yet it exists, Torren replied. Whether you wish it or not. Rinka stepped forward, her voice firm. General, the doctor saved me. His hands were not of desire, but of duty. I owe him my life. I will not let his kindness be turned into a crime. Her words echoed through the hall. Some Veshan looked shocked. Others stared in silence. The humans watched quietly, unsure what to say. Torn's tone grew sharp. You defend him, Commander, even now? Then perhaps you are too close to these humans, too changed by their ways. Perhaps, she said evenly. Or perhaps their ways are not as weak as you believe. The hall went silent again. For a moment no one spoke. Then the human commander, Captain Mara, stood up. General Torn, if I may, our alliance exists because we believe in cooperation. If one human saving one Veshan's life breaks that, then maybe we never had unity to begin with. The general's jaw tightened. You speak boldly, Captain, but you do not understand our laws. And maybe you don't understand mercy, Mara said calmly. Torren looked between Rinka and Leon, his eyes burning.
Very well, he said at last.
The council will decide on this matter. Until then, Commander Rinka and Dr. Leon are not to leave this base. You will both be observed. With that, he turned and left the hall, his soldiers following behind him. Days passed slowly after the meeting. The air in the camp felt heavier, filled with whispers and half-glances. Humans treated Leon like a quiet hero, but the Veshan kept their distance. Even those who respected Rinka avoided her gaze. One afternoon, Leon sat outside the medbay working on his notes. The twin suns were setting, painting the sky in red and gold. He didn't hear Rinka approach until she sat beside him. Do you regret saving me? She asked suddenly. He looked up, surprised. Of course not, even after all this trouble. He smiled faintly. I'd do it again. 100 times. She turned to face him, studying his expression. Humans are strange, she said softly. You stand in the fire and call it light. He chuckled quietly. Maybe, but it's what keeps us warm. For the first time, Rinka laughed. A small sound, but genuine. It was the first time Leon had heard it. You risk everything for things you cannot keep, she said. I envy that, he tilted his head. And what do you risk? My place, she said, my name. Everything I am. Then maybe we're not so different, he said. They sat in silence as the last light faded. For a brief moment, neither human nor alien existed. Only two souls caught between duty and belief. The next morning, chaos returned. The Kraith had sent a final message, a demand for surrender. The Alliance refused. A massive strike was expected within hours. The base prepared for battle once more. Captain Mara ordered all non-combat personnel to the shelters, but Leon refused. I'm staying in the medbay, he said. If the wounded come in, they'll need me. Rinka, now partially reinstated to command, stood by him. You are stubborn, Doctor. Someone has to be, he replied. When the attack began, it was worse than before. Fire lit the horizon. Missiles struck the outer walls, shaking the ground. The wounded poured in, humans and Vishan alike. Leon worked without rest, hands moving fast, voice calm even as explosions thundered outside. Rinka fought at the front lines, her spear glowing with blue energy. Every time she struck, she thought of the doctor behind her, patching up lives with quiet strength. Hours later, a blast hit near the medbay. The roof cracked, debris fell, and smoke filled the room. Leon dove over a wounded soldier, shielding him from falling metal. When the dust cleared, his shoulder was bleeding. Rinka burst in moments later, covered in dust and blood. "Leon," she shouted, rushing to him. He looked up, coughing. Still alive. She pulled him to his feet, ignoring his protests. "You are wounded." "I've had worse," he said weakly. Without thinking, she tore a strip from her armor cloth and pressed it against his wound. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from realization. The roles had reversed. He smiled faintly. "Now you're touching me." She froze, then laughed quietly, a sound full of irony. "Then we are even." After the battle ended, the base stood in ruins, but victorious. The Kraith had finally retreated. The surviving soldiers gathered for a memorial, honoring those lost. Humans and Veshan stood side by side. When Rinka spoke at the ceremony, her voice carried strength. "We are different, yet we fight the same enemies, bleed the same blood, and share the same hope. Let not our traditions divide what courage has joined." Her words echoed through the camp. Even General Torrin, standing in the distance, did not interrupt. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Leon stood beside her. "That was brave," he said. "I only spoke truth," she replied. "Perhaps someday our people will see it too." He looked at her quietly. "And if they don't?" She turned to him, her eyes soft but determined. "Then I will teach them. With your help, if you'll give it." He smiled gently. "Always." As the stars appeared in the sky, the human doctor and the alien warrior stood together, no longer strangers divided by law, but allies bound by something far deeper, a bond born not of tradition, but of choice. And though the war was over, their true battle, to unite two worlds, was only beginning. The morning sun rose over the battered camp of Threx 9, casting pale gold light across the ruins. Smoke still lingered in the air, a reminder of the battle that had shaken the planet. Soldiers moved carefully, rebuilding walls, clearing debris, and tending the wounded. Yet amidst the clamor of recovery, two figures stood apart, Commander Rinka and Dr. Leon. Rinka's armor had been repaired, gleaming faintly under the morning sun. She tested her strength, lifting her plasma spear with ease. Even after all that had happened, her resolve had grown. She had survived when others had fallen, and she owed that survival to the human beside her. Leon adjusted the straps of his med kit, checking supplies for the day. Despite the chaos around them, he remained calm, observing her from a small distance. "You are quiet today," Rinka said, her voice measured yet carrying an edge of curiosity. "I have a lot to do," he replied, "but I watch too. It's part of my job." Her golden eyes studied him. "Do humans always put others before themselves?" "Not always," Leon said. "But when you do, you often discover what you're really capable of." She turned away, facing the rising sun. "And what am I capable of now, Doctor?" "More than you think," he said simply. The calm did not last long. A sudden alarm rang through the camp. Kraith scouts had been spotted near the outer perimeter. The soldiers hurried to their positions, weapons ready. Rinka's squad formed immediately, moving with precision and discipline. "Stay behind, Doctor," she commanded as she noticed him approaching the line of combat. "I won't," Leon said quietly. "If there are wounded, they'll need me." Rinka's eyes narrowed. "Then I will watch your back." Without another word, she ran forward, spear in hand. Leon followed, medkit slung over his shoulder, weaving through smoke and debris. Explosions shook the ground, dust filling the air. Every step reminded them of the fragile line between life and death. The Kraith drones moved fast, but Rinka's skill was unmatched. She struck swiftly, taking down the first wave before it could reach the human lines. Behind her, Leon moved with equal precision, not in combat but in saving lives. He pulled injured soldiers and Veshan alike to safety, applying rapid healing to those who would have otherwise died. A blast rocked the area. Leon stumbled, hitting the ground hard. A shard of metal grazed his arm, leaving a shallow wound. Before he could even react, Rinka was there, her spear slicing through the air to destroy the incoming drone. "You shouldn't be here," she said, concern in her voice as she knelt beside him. "I can't leave them," he said, grimacing from the pain. Her hands moved quickly, tearing a strip of cloth from her armor to wrap his arm. For a brief moment her hand rested on his shoulder, not as healer to patient but as protector to ally. "You always make things complicated," she said softly. Leon smiled faintly. "I could say the same about you." After the skirmish ended, the camp was silent once more. The surviving soldiers gathered, some celebrating their victory, others mourning the loss of friends. Rinka and Leon walked together through the field, surveying the damage. "You could have left me behind," she said quietly. "I could have," he replied, "but I didn't. You trust me even though I broke your law." "Why?" Rinka stopped, her spear resting on her shoulder. "Because you saved me. Not for glory, not for reward, but because it was right. That is something I have rarely seen among my people." "And now?" he asked. She looked at him, eyes steady. "Now, I cannot let anything happen to you. Not from the Kraith, not from my people, not from anyone." Leon blinked. "You mean that?" "I do," she said, her voice firm. "If anyone challenges you, they will face me first." Word of her declaration spread quickly through the camp. The Veshan soldiers whispered among themselves. Some were angry, others confused, and a few surprisingly admired her courage. Among the humans, whispers turned into quiet laughter and admiration. Leon, for his part, remained calm, though the weight of her vow pressed upon him. That evening, in the quiet of the med bay, Rinka returned to her bedside. She had sustained minor injuries during the fight, but nothing Leon couldn't handle. As he applied the nanogel, she watched him carefully. "You heal so naturally," she said. "It is astonishing. Practice," he said. "And patience. Anyone can learn if they truly care." Her gaze lingered on his hands, steady despite the chaos around them. "You are different, Doctor. Among humans and even among your allies. I have never seen anyone like you." Leon looked up. "That is kind of you to say, but I don't think I'm special." "You are," she said firmly, "because you act when others hesitate. Because you value life over law, over pride. You are exceptional." He laughed softly. "You make it sound like a story." "Perhaps it is," she replied. "And perhaps the story has only just begun." The next day brought a new challenge. A transport carrying supplies and reinforcements had been delayed. The camp needed protection while it arrived. Rinka took command, directing squads with precision. Leon assisted in the medical bay, preparing for potential casualties. Yet every time a ship appeared on the scanners, his thoughts returned to her. She moved through the camp with authority and grace, leading not just with strength but with compassion. Leon realized that the warrior he had once seen as untouchable was learning to see him as an equal, perhaps even as a partner. During a brief lull, Rinka approached him. "Doctor," she said, voice quiet but firm, "I have made a decision." "And that is?" "I will protect you," she said, eyes unwavering. "Not because you ask it, but because I choose it. Your life is now my responsibility." Leon stared. "Even if that brings trouble?" "Especially then," she said. "I do not fear my people's judgment nor the enemy. If they come for you, they will face me first." He felt a warmth he had never known. "Rinka, that is not something I expected." "Expect nothing," she replied. "Only understand that my vow is real." The following week passed with a tense calm. The Kraith had retreated, but scouts remained in nearby sectors. Rinka and Leon continued their routine, she with her training and command, he with his healing. Yet every small interaction carried weight. The bond formed in battle, once unintended, was now acknowledged silently between them. One evening, as the twin moons of Threx 9 rose, Rinka stood at the edge of the camp, gazing at the stars. Leon joined her, holding a cup of synthesized tea. "You think about your people," he said quietly. "I do," she replied. "Their laws are old, and sometimes they blind them to what is right. But I cannot abandon my duty even for this bond." Leon nodded. "And yet you have already chosen to protect me." "That is more than duty. That is trust." She turned to him, eyes softening. "Trust, yes, and more. I will not say what it is yet. I only know that you are no longer alone, and neither am I." He smiled, feeling a rare sense of peace. "Then I will walk this path with you, whatever comes." Their hands brushed lightly as they walked back to the med bay. Neither spoke of the unspoken bond that had formed, silent acknowledgement of a connection forged through danger, healing, and trust. Days later, the council message arrived again. This time, the Veshan elders demanded that Rinka return to Vesha Prime for judgment. She read it aloud to Leon, her voice calm but resolute. They expect me to face consequences for being alive, she said, for being touched by you. Then what will you do? Leon asked. I will go, she said, but I will not go alone. You have saved my life, Doctor. You will accompany me, Leon's eyes widened. I cannot simply join a council meeting on an alien planet. They might imprison me. She looked at him steadily. Then they will learn that one cannot threaten the life of someone I have chosen to protect. If anyone raises a hand against you, I will stand in the way. Leon swallowed hard. Her resolve was absolute, her loyalty unwavering. Then, I will go with you, he said quietly. Good, she replied. It is time the council sees that life and mercy can be stronger than fear and tradition. As night fell over the camp, they prepared for the journey to Vesha Prime. Their bond had grown from survival to trust, and now to a promise, one that neither law nor war could break. For the first time since their meeting on the battlefield, both felt certain that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. And so beneath the stars of Threx 9, the human doctor and the alien warrior forged a vow to protect one another in a world of law, battle, and unyielding tradition. The journey from Threx 9 to Vesha Prime was long and tense. The human transport ship glided silently through the void, carrying both human and Veshan passengers. Commander Rinka sat near the front of the cabin, her armor removed and neatly stored. She gazed at the stars silent, as if preparing herself for the judgment she would face upon arrival. Dr. Leon sat beside her, medkit on his lap, notes scattered across the small table. Unlike Rinka, he tried to focus on his work, checking medical protocols and reading reports. Yet his eyes often drifted toward her. You are quiet, he said softly, breaking the silence. I am thinking, she replied, eyes still on the stars, about what awaits us, about my people, about their laws, and about you. He looked at her curious. And what do you think? She hesitated, then said quietly, that perhaps my people do not understand what it means to truly save someone. They have rules, and yet they do not see mercy as strength. Leon nodded. Sometimes the strongest laws are the ones people cannot see. Compassion can be stronger than any rule. Rinka glanced at him, a faint smile touching her lips. Perhaps that is why I will trust you. Upon arrival at Vesha Prime, the atmosphere changed immediately. The capital city was vast, with towers gleaming under the twin suns. Ships hovered above the surface, and banners of the Veshan Empire fluttered in the breeze. The council chambers were at the heart of the city, a place where the fate of warriors and civilians alike could be determined. Rinka walked with Leon by her side, her stride steady, her head held high. The streets were filled with Veshan citizens, curious and watchful, as whispers spread about the human accompanying a commander. When they entered the Grand Council Hall, the elders were already seated. Their faces were stern, proud, and unyielding. General Torin was among them, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Commander Rinka, the chief elder began, you have returned after surviving a battle, but you come under accusation. You allowed a human, an outsider, to touch you, violating the sacred bond law. Explain yourself. Rinka stepped forward, her golden eyes unwavering. I allowed him to touch me to save my life. I do not deny it. But the act was one of necessity, not of desire. He healed me when none else could, murmurs filled the hall. Some elders whispered sharply to one another. Others stared silently. Leon stepped forward as well. With respect, elders of Vesha Prime, I acted only to save a life. I did not seek bond, honor, or recognition. My actions were guided by duty, nothing else. Commander Rinka's life was at risk. I intervened to prevent death. The council was silent. This was unprecedented. Never before had a human been allowed to speak before the Veshan Council. The chief elder's eyes narrowed. You claim mercy over law. And what say you, Commander? Do you accept this human as your mate? Rinka's gaze swept over the hall, then returned to Leon. I do not claim him by law. I claim no human law. But I do declare this. He saved me, and for that he has my life's trust. Anyone who challenges him must face me first. A tense silence followed. Then slowly, murmurs turned into nods. Some elders looked surprised, others thoughtful. General Torin remained silent, observing her carefully. Very well, the chief elder finally said. Your words are unusual, but your courage is undeniable. Let it be known. The human has acted with honor and the commander has spoken truth. No harm shall come to him while she lives. This council will take no further action at this time. Rinka exhaled quietly, relief softening her features. Leon gave her a faint smile, his shoulders relaxing for the first time in days. The following weeks were a time of rebuilding and reconciliation. The human medical teams were granted special permission to remain on Vesha Prime, working alongside Veshan healers. Leanne and Rinka spent their days traveling between hospitals, teaching the art of rapid healing and emergency care. Through their work, the humans and Veshan began to understand each other more. Soldiers and civilians alike marveled at the efficiency of human medicine. The Veshan saw strength not only in weapons but in the careful, precise work of saving life. Rinka and Leon continued to grow closer, not in romance, but in trust and mutual respect. She admired his patience, his calmness in crises, and his unshakable belief in the value of life. He admired her courage, her unwavering sense of duty, and her willingness to challenge old customs for the greater good. One afternoon, as they worked in the central med bay, a young Veshan child was brought in, injured in a training accident. Leanne worked quickly to stabilize him, but Rinka stayed close, offering comfort and encouragement. You see, she said quietly to the child, he heals without fear. That is strength you can trust. The child looked at her wide-eyed. Even better than a spear? Rinka chuckled softly. Yes, sometimes hands are stronger than weapons. Leon watched her amazed. You're teaching them more than medicine, he said. And you are teaching them more than healing, she replied. Months passed, and peace slowly returned to the border sectors. The alliance between humans and Veshan grew stronger. Together they rebuilt towns, trained soldiers, and prepared for future threats. The story of the human doctor who had healed the Veshan commander spread throughout the planets, a tale of courage, mercy, and unexpected bonds. Rinka stood atop one of the newly repaired towers, looking over the city. The twin suns shone brightly, casting long shadows over the streets. Leon joined her, handing her a small cup of synthesized tea. You have done well, he said softly. So have you, she replied. Not only in healing, but in showing my people that there is more to strength than battle alone. He smiled. I only did what I could. You did more than you know, she said. You have changed us, Doctor. And not only the Veshan, humans too. You have reminded us what courage and mercy truly mean. They stood together in silence, watching the horizon. The war was over, but the work of building understanding and trust was ongoing. One evening, as the stars appeared over Vesha Prime, Rinka and Leon returned to the medbay after a long day. The lights were dim, and the hum of machines filled the room. You have changed my life, Rinka said quietly, sitting beside him. Not only because you saved me, but because you showed me what is possible when we act without fear of law or judgment. Leon shook his head. I did what any human would do. You survived because I cared, that's all. Perhaps, she said, but caring is a rare gift. You gave me back my life and more. You gave me a choice, a chance to challenge the old ways. You showed me that mercy and strength can coexist. He looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. I never wanted reward, he said, but I'll admit, it feels good to know I made a difference. Her golden eyes softened. You have made a difference beyond measure, and for that you have my respect, my trust, and my promise. Whatever comes, I will stand by you. Leon smiled faintly, touched by her sincerity. Then we faced the future together. As the weeks turned into months, the alliance between humans and Veshan became legendary. Stories of the human doctor and the alien warrior spread across systems. Leaders spoke of their courage, their wisdom, and the bond that had defied tradition. Children grew up hearing the story, not as a tale of forbidden acts, but as an example of unity and understanding. The human who healed a Veshan warrior showed that life, compassion, and courage could bridge any divide. Rinka continued to train new warriors, her spear now a symbol of both honor and mercy. Leon led medical teams across the planets, his calm hands saving countless lives. Together, they visited villages and training grounds, showing humans and Veshan alike that strength was not only measured in battle, but in the choices made when life hangs in the balance. One quiet evening, As the twin suns set over Vesha Prime, Rinka and Leon stood side by side at the top of the medbay tower. Below them, the city glowed with activity and hope. "You have changed everything," she said softly. "No," he replied. "We changed it together." Her gaze met his. "Perhaps, but it started with you, Doctor. You reached out your hands when no one else would. You healed what others would have left to die." Leon shook his head. "It's not just healing. It's seeing what's worth protecting. That's what makes humans human," she smiled faintly. "Then I am honored to walk beside you, human. Not by law, not by tradition, but by choice, and that choice is stronger than any law." He returned her smile, feeling the truth in her words. Stronger indeed. As the stars shimmered above, the human doctor and the Veshan warrior stood together, united by courage, trust, and the bond that had grown from compassion. Across the galaxy, their story would be told for generations, a story of life, mercy, and the extraordinary power of a human heart. And in that moment, they knew. No matter what challenges the universe might bring, they would face them together, their bond unbroken, their mission clear, and their hearts steadfast,